Welcome to Politics Today. I'm John J. Fahey. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. Usually when you see me, we do our entertainment show, and we love bringing that show to you, and we hope that you enjoy it as much as we enjoy doing it. But occasionally we do a political show, and we brought Politics Today back tonight so that you could have the opportunity to be involved with interactive television, to be informed on something that I think is a very hot topic right now. And we're in a very contentious, quite contentious election season. So we have several guests tonight that we're going to speak to and about social media. And that's a hot topic right now. My guest is Ted Lewis, and you know Ted from BNN TV, but Ted is also a social media consultant and joins us tonight. And we're going to have a very special guest join us in just a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to tie everything that Ted and myself talk about. It's going to be a mixture. And I think that we're going to be quite well informed about how important and salient that social media is. Ted, always a pleasure to have you on the program. We did a program not long ago about the U.S. Census, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And how pertinent about that, because we have over 300 million people in the United States right now. And what better way of reaching these people is through social media.
Right.
Ted, tell us a little about that, because for people that are watching right now, they're saying, hey, Ted, John, what exactly is social media? You see it all the time. In fact, are we right now involved with social media on television?
Oh, it's more than ever, more than ever. And basically, social media is what we do every day. We have a conversation.
It's communication.
It's communication.
Okay.
The unique thing about this type of communication is that we do it with our fingers. I call it having a conversation with a friend where the world is watching. So you want to be careful, one, of what you say. The other thing is that it's a unique way of getting a message out, and there's a wide variety of ways of doing that, either through Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, sites like that, Foursquare. It's just all kinds of things.
And texting on your own phone too, right?
And see, that's the thing about it. You can do it on your phone. They actually are working on watches where you can do it on your watch also. You can receive messages or send messages through your watch.
The future has arrived.
It's here. It is here.
The future has arrived.
I mean, we're seeing movies on our iPhones and our Androids and things like that. I remember the director of Blazing Saddles giving a lecture, and he says, I don't know where this is going. Maybe it's this is where it's going, and he showed his iPhone. Well, guess what? That's what we're doing today, and that lecture was just last year. So things are hot now. Social media. Well, if you want to look at it this way, we have Facebook, we have LinkedIn, we have Foursquare,
Twitter.
We have Twitter. Sites like that. There was just so many sites. And there's ways of talking to every one of those sites at the same time, which I'll explain later on also. And basically, I talk to 9 sites at the same time. And but first you got to look at what does each site represent, okay? And basically what I say is LinkedIn is about business, Facebook is social, Twitter is a social, it could be either way. And then you have Flickr.
We have YouTube too, but that's mostly...
Oh, I was getting to that. We have Flickr, which is about still photographs and some video, but then we have YouTube, which is about video.
Right.
And and it's using those sites and what I call those tools to get the message out. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think the most impressive campaign was the one that President Obama presented the United States with through social media, and he was able to tap into demographics.
We're talking about close to 4 years ago, is that right?
Yes.
And social media was that in its infant stage at that point, or?
I would
pretty
say
well developed
it was
then,
just beginning to peak out and be recognized. I mean, who knew? And I think that's where a lot of the candidates were caught shortchanged because they never considered using social media to tap into demographics where whoever the president's team was said, hey, guess what? We got a thing called social media.
Well, it's interesting because our guest, and if you stay tuned, it's going to be a surprise. We have a very special guest with us tonight who's on his way right now. And 4 years ago, around the same time, during the presidential election. He and I had a discussion about that. And he's going to talk about, and he's going to pick up on what he talked about at that point. So this is going to be interesting. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
But before we continue, we'd like to tell you that this is interactive television. We'd love to hear what you have to say. 617-708-3280. We're better to have people talk to us and communicate us about a show about social media right here on Politics Today. Ted and I have a very special guest with us right here at BNN. It's Charles Yancey, Boston City Councilor. And Charles and I spoke about an election just about 4 years ago. And that's what I was talking about before Charles got here. And, well, Charles, first of all, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much.
And Ted and I were looking forward to talking about this because we're talking about social media also. Yes. But 4 years ago, you came on.
Isn't that something? 4 years ago, we were debating about who the next president of the United States would be, and you had your candidate, I had mine. Mine happened to have won that time, and hopefully he will be reelected. But I really appreciate this program, because you're fair, you're balanced.
And we opened up to
agree on 90, on every issue, but I think the respect you show for your guests is really admirable. And
oh, thank you.
I appreciate that.
And thank you. And I'd like to just, so for people that are watching, Charles Yancey is currently Dean of the Boston City Council, serving longer than any other current member of the body. Are you still post-audit and oversight committee?
No, I actually chair the Environment and Human Rights Committee.
Okay.
I did serve as chair of the post-audit and oversight committee up until this year. But Councilor Murphy appointed Councilor Jackson to that position. But I still serve on the Ways and Means Committee and most committees of the City Council.
Certainly an important meeting.
And I'm still having fun after all these years.
And the books, Charles, the books.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you for reminding me, because this time next month, on July 7th, we're going to celebrate our 26th annual Charles C. Yancey Book Fair. And so far, we've given away more than 500,000 brand new books to the children of Boston because of the help of people like you and the general public. So come to the Reggie Lewis Center.
But you used to do one in March, too. Years ago it was in March, I remember.
Yeah, previously it was in February and March, but we outgrew the Carbon Square branch library after our second year, even though we were there for many years after that. We outgrew the Carter Post and outgrew the Prince Hall, which is the largest facility in my district. So now we've taken over the entire track of the Reggie Lewis Sports and Athletic Facility.
Right on New Dudley.
It's on the it's no longer New Dudley. I have to bring you up to date.
Okay.
That's Malcolm X Boulevard.
Malcolm X Boulevard, okay.
We changed the name out of respect for Malcolm X in terms of his roots right here in the city of Boston. So, yes, we've also renamed Franklin Field. Some people still call it Franklin Field. It's Harambe Park.
Oh, I know.
We changed that. The community got together. So we want to define ourselves. So they selected Franklin Field, renamed it Harambe Park. Now, Harambe is Swahili, meaning community coming together. And, you know, John, that was 1985.
That was a long time ago.
A long time ago. So
you know, talking about social media, the Malcolm X house.
Yes.
Is a historic house, and that was in the news just yesterday.
Just saying.
We're going to take a call. We're going to talk about. Can we have your question, please?
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Yancey.
Hi. Okay.
Mr. Yancey, I know you're interested in education, and I have a question.
Yes.
I know of two teachers that have been in the school system for 10 to 12 years, but they cannot get tenure, and they're thinking of leaving the profession, which I think would be a shame. Can the city council help with that, or who do they contact, or what do they do?
Well, that's a very difficult problem, and first of all, thank you so much for calling and watching. Yes. You never know who's out there in the audience, and thank you for your concern and your commitment for education. I think seniority does make a difference. I think it's important to have people with institutional memory and who have demonstrated their love and concern for our children over the years. So I think it would be tragic for us to lose any good teacher, but particularly someone who has invested as many years. But to answer your question directly, let me tell you, in the past I would have told you to go to your elected school committee member. However, as you know, for the better part of the last decade, Boston's been the only municipality in the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts where you can no longer elect your school committee members. All of the members are appointed by the mayor of Boston. So if you can get a hold of the mayor, and maybe he can have some influence on the school committee and on the superintendent, and ask them to take a look at this case. Other than that, it'll be very difficult. And I would say categorically that since there's no reporting relationship between the school department and the city council, we have about as much influence on that as you would. But I certainly would like you to call my office, or ask the teacher to call my office to let me know what's going on, and maybe there's a systemic issue that I can address as your city councilor. And incidentally, I want you to take my telephone number down. It's 617-635-3131. And if you
now, I don't know if that's going to work during these days of social media.
On social media.
See, this is about social media. It's actually pan out
I know
there.
we have an intimate relationship with our audience.
Well,
one or two people out there, so we can keep it quiet.
Well, that's the whole idea of interactive television. And like Ted and I were saying, this is a form of social media too.
Yes, it is. A very important form. In fact, many of us were around before we even had cable.
Right.
And we know that we're lucky to have a selection of maybe 3 or 4 television stations. Today, we not only have hundreds of choices, but we can look and you can call your elected representative, thanks to Mr. Fahey here, and interact and raise critical issues of concern. I was wondering whether our caller was aware that the school department over the past couple of years have been cutting back significantly. They've been closing many schools, even closed Hyde Park High.
I know, and that was renovated recently, but you were also involved with, or trying to push for a high school in Mattapan, too.
Absolutely. We have, John, we have 18,000 Boston Public High School students today enrolled in the Boston Public School System. But we only have 14,000 high school seats. So we have 4,000 of our brilliant seniors attending classes in elementary school buildings, storefronts. We even have children attending their classes in the basement of the YWCA. So many years ago, in his wisdom, the mayor asked a group of experts, dozens of experts got together, and they came up with Boston's most recent comprehensive facilities plan, where they looked at what the needs were in the system. And they determined back in 1996 that Boston needed to build 2 new high schools, and they were looking primarily at the demographics, at the numbers going through the system. They predicted that we would have a shortage of seats. But they also said something that is just as relevant today, and that is that our high school students should have the same opportunity as high school students all around the state to go to state-of-the-art, 21st century high school facilities. And we don't have that in Boston today. Even where all of our high school students go to the more traditional high school buildings like I did. I attended Boston Technical High School, when John D. O'Brien was one of my guidance counselors. And now the Boston Technical High School is named after John D. O'Brien, and they relocated to the Madison Park facility, and Latin Academy is in the building I attended. But the interesting thing is, that's a traditional high school building. My mother graduated from that same building when it was Roxbury Memorial High School for Girls. And Dapper was there around the same time.
Yep.
And he graduated from Roxbury Memorial High School for boys. In that same building, we have an exam school, as Boston Tech was, but it's old and antiquated and outmoded, and there are problems. Why not build a state-of-the-art high school from the ground up with the 21st century in mind? We have 15 acres of land on a beautiful college campus-like environment right there on the Boston State Hospital site. And Mike Contampassis, the previous superintendent of schools, said that's an ideal location for a school. So everyone seems to think it's a good idea except for the mayor. My friend the mayor, the mayor will tell you, every opportunity I ask him, why are we sending our children to substandard high school facilities when we have the opportunity to build a beautiful facility in the heart of our community that will pay respect to all of our students? Because when you send a child to a substandard building, that sends a message to them subconsciously or consciously that our priority is not with that person. And I know that's not what the mayor wants to do, but we're missing so many opportunities. Thousands of our high school students have graduated from the Boston Public School System since the Blue Ribbon Commission report was issued, and we've yet to give them a state-of-the-art high school, in addition to having 4,000 go to substandard facilities.
And that's something that needs to be discussed. And
yes, yes. So let me use this opportunity. Hopefully the mayor is watching. He should be watching. To invite the mayor to sit down. If he doesn't want to build a high school, debate it with me. Let's have a debate about it, because the public needs to get involved and needs to hear his reason. Because the other kicker to this whole discussion is that if the mayor is saying, Ted, that we can't afford to build a high school in the city of Boston, then how can we afford to provide new office space for the school department, the appointed school committee?
Which is going to be down at Dudley Square.
We're building, and I support it. I think it's a great economic development project to develop the Ferdinand building, and we're putting the school department in there. But we're spending $115 million, which is more than what it would cost to build a high school for our children. So we have to also talk about priorities. You can't say on one hand, we can't build a high school, and then spend $60 million hosting the Democratic Convention, which we did, private funds by and large, but we raised it. We spent close to $1 billion construction that convention center, which is a needed facility in our community. We've built police stations and other facilities, but when we're going to tell our high school students that we're going to give you the same competitive edge that the children in Newton North have, or the children in Quincy have, and there are dozens of other communities, but we have to do it. We can't afford not to educate our children.
When the school department moves from Court Street to Dudley,
yes,
what will happen with that building downtown?
Excellent question.
Would there be money realized from the sale of that or whatever?
The administration has been silent on that. Just as they were silent.
That's prime real estate. That's right downtown.
It really is. They were silent when they closed down Hyde Park High
recently renovated too.
Against my wishes, yes. We spent $42 million renovating Hyde Park High. That's one of the traditional high school buildings.
Right.
And we had 3,000 children go into substandard building before we closed it. There were 900 students there, so we're up to about 4,000. And because the state kicked in a good part of that money, the state came back to us and said, hey, wait a minute. If our students are not attending that building, we're not going to continue to make payments on the mortgage for that building. And of course, that put pressure on the school department and the mayor to decide to put other high school students into that building. But the sad thing is, they transferred children out of that building. CASH, the Community Academy for Science and Health, they were sent from that traditional high school building that had decent facilities over to the Grover Cleveland Middle School, right there in Fields Corner. It was appropriate for middle school students, but we had to spend an additional $1 million just to retrofit that building and increase the size of the lockers, for example. It made no sense at all, and it was not fair to our students.
Okay, I think we do have a call. Can we have a question, please?
I got a couple of things. First of all, I'm not sure if I didn't hear the whole thing, but I know the mayor spent $900 million to build that convention center. Now he wants to duplicate it and spend $900 million, but they can't find enough money for the high school, which we really need. I mean, we definitely need education. And my other question is, do you think social media will end the television, or we won't be using television anymore? We'll become interactive with the computers and stuff like that, but the television will be on its way out? Okay, thank you.
All right, the first question was about the convention center, and the second was, will social media...
Okay. Well, with regards to the convention center, the caller is correct. There is a plan to expand the $1 billion convention center that we have. And incidentally, the city only kicked in $157 million of seed money to prepare the site for the new convention center. The bulk of it came from the state. But the city certainly is deeply involved in that convention center. But ironically, $157 million was double what it would have cost to build a high school during that same period of time. And I want that caller to call the mayor's office and ask him, what is it about our children that tells him that it's okay to put them into elementary school buildings? You know, in 2012, we have Boston Public High School students attending classes in the basement, listen to me, in the basement of the YWCA on Clarendon Street. Check it out for yourself. Is that fair? I mean, don't you think our children should have the ability to compete with other children who have superior facilities? So you wonder why we're not doing well in science and math and have the music program and the athletic programs. The mayor wants our children to be healthy. He wants our children to deal with the obesity problem that we have. So how can we in good conscience say, okay, you're going to this school building, you're going up the street at the Greater Eggleston Community High School, where you don't have a library, you don't have a cafeteria, you don't have an auditorium, you don't have science lab, you don't have a gymnasium to exercise. And for lunch, you're on the honor system. Let you go out, maybe go to Eggleston Square, to McDonald's, and maybe you come back to class, maybe you won't. But that's not the environment that we should be providing for our children. And you know, we have the ability to borrow the money. A credit rating, and I have to give the Mayor administration credit for the great credit rating that we have. Our finances are managed very, very well, so much so that we have enough in terms of our credit limit to build that high school and do the other things we're working on now. So it's not a question of money as much as priorities. And I would agree with those who say that education is not only about a building. It's about our teachers, it's about developing partnerships with parents.
It's inclusive with everything, sure.
And the theme of this year's book fair is it takes a team to educate a child. Well, that's true in the schools as well. In the schools,
of course.
But it doesn't hurt to have a science lab. It doesn't hurt to have a gymnasium.
Or a library.
Or a library. And I will be, if the administration is having problems with books, I will supply additional books to the school system myself. I have thousands of books. So I just think it's a question of priority, and we have to say that we can no longer afford to send our children to these substandard facilities where their chances of success in terms of competing with children who have better facilities is lessened. And we can do better, and we're going to do better. And we are going to build that high school on the grounds of the Boston State Hospital. We have 15 acres of land. Nowhere else in the city of Boston can we assemble that amount of acreage without the use of eminent domain. It's been sitting there.
It's owned already by the city.
And have some great synergies with the Audubon Society's Nature Center, the Mass Biologic Lab, and we have hundreds of brand new housing on that site today.
And what a better place to have an educational facility. I mean, that whole area is just absolutely beautiful. It's something that, you know, and with all due respect to our legislative leaders, that we have to, in my own opinion, is start looking at investment strategies in whichever way that's going to work out, so that we can start having monies come in and making our taxes work for us and things like that. One of the things that I do on the side is advocate for the aviation industry. But how can we have pilots, how can we have astronauts without the science labs?
That's right.
How can we have them without schools? And it has to be state of the art.
Or be involved with social media without good technology.
Exactly.
Right.
How do you have without a
Gives
computer?
me an idea. Why don't we utilize social media to make people aware of what's happening in Boston with regards to the schools? There's a lot of issues. I mean, if we were on Facebook, or if we got more involved with Twitter and those other things, because I believe that if people knew what was really going on, Councilor Yancey would not be the only one talking about the high school and city government. Everyone knows about the Blue Ribbon Commission report, but they have found it very convenient to talk about everything else and to ignore it and say, well, there Yancey goes again talking about the high school. I'm talking about 15 years.
You've been talking about it for a while. I know it's been out there for a while.
And it's very frustrating for me to have to go over this time and time again when all of my colleagues on the city council, the mayor, every member of the school committee, and I've had personal discussions with the superintendent and the chairman of the school committee, none of them said it's a bad idea, but they don't want to speak up because the mayor has made it known that this is simply not a priority. And I don't agree with him. And that's why I said I'm using your program. I've never done this before. But I would be happy and thrilled, John, if you can invite Tom and Ian to sit with Ted is sitting, and the mayor and I can have that discussion. Mr. Mayor, what's your alternative? You know, how do you justify going ahead with all these other projects? We've built jails and prisons.
Libraries.
And libraries, which I support.
There's a nice one over in
and I want to thank the mayor.
It's a nice one in
I'll go public, okay?
Right on Blue Hill Ave.
Because we fought hard to build that Mattapan's newest library and the state-of-the-art facility that is one of the busiest in the entire city. I want to thank the trustees of the Boston Public Library for naming the community room after a person near and dear to my heart, Alice W. Yancey. My mother raised 9 of us. Yep. That community room is named after her, and I thank Amy Ryan and, of course, the trustees and the mayor.
Beautiful building.
And my colleagues on the city council. That's a wonderful honor and well-deserved because my mother was a great community activist. I don't know how she did it, raising 9 children along with my dad. They were married 50 years, and I'm thrilled with that. But as I stated, during the groundbreaking ceremony for that library and the ribbon-cutting ceremony for that library, that we have to go to the next step and make sure that we also have a state-of-the-art high school that will service all the children in the city of Boston. It's true that Mattapan's never had a high school. Right. It's true that more than 1,300 Boston Public High School students live in Mattapan, but it will be open to everyone. It's going to be a facility
like a magnet school
that's going to attract, you're right, it'll be a magnet high school that will attract people from all over the city. And yes, even those who live outside the city will be envious and want to come to Boston's best state-of-the-art high school.
You know, the other thing about this is that it would work hand in hand with all the colleges and universities that we have.
Yes.
So I believe the money is there. It's just a matter of, what's the name of the show, Politics Today.
Right. That's right.
That we have to get the people out to vote.
That's right.
Key. You got to vote.
Absolutely.
I'm on social media all the time. I'm chastising people.
And we say that all the time on this program. And we see more and more during the presidential election. And I think that's because of social media too. I mean, we see more than 48% or 49%. We're seeing more and more, not on the primary elections here, but on the presidential elections, we're seeing more and more. And that's very encouraging.
Well, you may remember 4 years ago, we ran out of ballots in some areas, as we did 2 years prior when DeVal Patrick was running. And that was very exciting. I mean, it was embarrassing in the sense that we didn't have adequate ballots there. Because we know how many people who are already...
Traditionally who vote.
No, but we also know the numbers of people who are registered in each and every precinct of the city. So why we weren't prepared is beyond me. But we're doing a lot better. But that's the type of problem I'd love for us to have. I'll never forget, John, that you know, many years ago in the early 80s, I was one of the members of the group determined to free South Africa. Okay, a lot of people weren't tuned into that too much. Boston's passed the strongest divestment legislation back in 1984, one of my first pieces of legislation, which forced the city to withdraw money from businesses supporting the Nazi-like apartheid regime in South Africa. Well, the point I'm making is that after Nelson Mandela was released from jail, we never thought that would happen, and he became a candidate for president of his country. That was miraculous in and of itself. And he was elected.
He's had his 9th birthday also.
That's right. But people stood for hours and days for the right to vote in South African election. And that was fantastic. And that's something that too many of us take for granted. And even within our own country, the most reliable voters happen to be our senior citizens. And some of them are disabled. And yet they go to vote, while the younger folks stay home or do other things, and somehow they feel it's irrelevant to participate in the process. Well, that's changing because of social media.
Yeah, I think so.
And that's a very positive change.
I think so. Can we have your question, please?
Hi, yes, I have a question for Mr. Yancey.
Yep.
Hi.
About 2 years ago, they were working on the sidewalks, and I have a tree in front of my house. They dug up around the tree, which left all the roots exposed.
Yeah.
Not only they didn't put back enough loam, they didn't put back enough concrete. Some kind of a metal box still exposed. And
Yes.
when the winter comes with those roots, it's very dangerous. Who do I contact about that?
Well, I'll make it real easy for you. 635, call my office, 635-3131. Of course, to report these problems, we do have a very effective system in the 24-hour service in the mayor's office, 635-4500 to report it. But if you would like to get my office involved, please call my office on Monday. I'm not going to give you my home number this time, but call my office on Monday, and I'll be happy to work with you.
A lot of people probably wrote
Yes.
that down anyway. But you know what, actually, you have, what the caller brought out also is that not only are you involved with all of these different projects, but you're also involved with constituent services.
Absolutely. You know, I am one of the luckiest men alive in the city of people alive in the city of Boston. My constituents have been very, very good to me over the years since they first elected me in 1983, and I really appreciate the opportunity to serve people. And that would not exist if I did not get the support from the people. So I owe it to them to follow up on all of these issues, and I will follow up on that sidewalk issue.
Now, social media, Ted, you brought something. I think we do have a phone call, and I want to talk about that. Can we have your question, please?
Yes, I don't have a question. I have a comment.
Okay.
I would like to tell Mr. Yancey that over the last years he's been there since '83, he's been doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
And he probably doesn't remember me by voice, but I'm Helen Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
And I agree with everything that you said, but I do believe that when you put this new school, they should include physical ed as well as a swimming pool, because there's so many children in the city of Boston that do not know how to swim.
Oh, I agree with you on that.
But everything else, I agree with absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for the call, and thank you for the compliment. I really do appreciate it.
That's all right. You always do good.
But
Everyone
is very excited about the new library that we have in Mattapan. I'm very proud of it. We fought hard. We actually got the financing for that in 1997, and it didn't open until 2009, so thank you for being patient. But the other thing we got done in 1997, I got a loan order for a new community center. And I insisted that that community center include a swimming pool. So the Mildred Avenue Community Center has an Olympic-sized pool, at least maybe it's half the size of an Olympic-sized pool, but it's well used, and I certainly couldn't agree with you more. In fact, one of the reasons I got upset with the mayor a couple of years ago was after we spent $1 million renovating the swimming pool at the Marshall School. On the day that we completed the construction, the announcement was made that we were going to close that community center, and it's still closed today, although the children can use that swimming pool. So I agree with you. We have to encourage more athletics on the part of our young people, and that's why the site on the grounds of the Boston State Hospital is ideal. No place else you're going to find 15 acres of land, and that's enough land for a track, a baseball field, and even a swimming pool. So yes, I agree with you.
Just like UMass has a nice track in the back.
Yes, it does.
We have one more question, and we're going to talk about the social. You have brought some. Can we have your question, please?
Hi, it's a comment. My name is Lovita, and I'd just like to say that I, too, like the last caller, am very happy with the work that Councilor Yancey has been taking on, and I believe that the education level that we have from his involvement in all these issues for me personally, is actually educating me about the political system and what's going on. So I'd like to say that I'm very excited about the work he's been doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for the call, and if I can, John, take a couple of seconds. Sure. Another law that's on the books that our parents need to know about, and that the school system has to do a better job communicating with the parents about. It's called the Parental School Leave Ordinance. I got that passed in 1994, and I guarantee you 9 out of 10 people you talk to in Boston never heard of it before.
What is that exactly?
It was patented after the Federal Family Medical Leave Act, where the employer cannot prevent you from taking time off your job. We can't force the employer to pay you for that time, but if you get punished,
you would be penalized.
You can penalize the company.
Right.
So you can take upwards of 3 days per year to visit your child during school hours, for school plays, parent-teacher conferences, athletic events, just to show your child that you're engaged, you're involved, and also to help hold the school system accountable. This is your school system. You should be able to walk around in any school your children go to. I got the idea when I was in elementary school. I come from a relatively large family, by today's standards. There were 9 of us. I was number 6. And I never knew when my mother, Alice Yancey, would be walking down the corridor at the Philip Brooks Elementary School, which is now housing, or the Patrick T. Campbell Junior High School, which is now the King Middle School, or even Boston Technical High School. So I always had to be on my best behavior, because I never knew when they were coming through. But, you know, my parents told me later that the reason they did that was not so much that they were concerned about my behavior, but they wanted to make sure that the teachers were actually teaching, that they didn't have to feet on the desk reading a newspaper, or they checked on the bathrooms and the corridors. All of our parents should do that. And not every parent has the same flexibility that you and I may have to take time off of work.
Right.
So now we have a law that they can use to negotiate with their employer. They have to give advance notice, of course. But I want all of our parents to take ownership of our schools. And I think that's been missing in far too many of our
And of course, taxpayers are paying a lot for the school system, too.
Close to $1 billion if you include the external funds.
And that's what, almost close to one half of the city budget of $2.4 billion.
Yes, and we're debating the budget right now.
Yeah. Yes. Ways and Means.
That's right.
That's an important committee to be on.
Yes, it is.
Ted, I know that you brought a few things in. A lot of our people at home sitting, let's talk a little more about the social media aspect of the visuals that you had. And I just wanted to just touch on that a little bit before we went on.
Okay, like I said in the very beginning, that we have various websites out there that we can work with. It's from Facebook to LinkedIn to Twitter and things like that. And a number of the problems that I'm hearing people going through, and I recommend going through the city councilor, through the LinkedIn, something like that. I've been generating petitions to get certain things to happen.
Right.
And it's interesting that the city council is responding to me.
That's right.
And I said, wow, someone is listening, someone is reading me. So it does work. And
You've accomplished a lot in the city, so the messages are getting out there.
Well,
but messages would be more prevalent, I think, with the social media.
Yeah. And see, the other thing about this social media phenomena or tool is that they have software, and they call them little electronic spiders.
Right.
And basically, when you put a tag on to whatever it is, your video or your conversation, it goes out there and it finds this here, it tags itself, it runs back and says, guess what, I found it, and it tells, and you can look at the how the person said what they said.
Right.
Do they repeat it, and who they repeat it to? And so that's how they were able to, the marketers are able to tell what's good and what's not good.
And not only that, years ago, you'd have to go, if you wanted to communicate, through newspapers, through radio and TV, which meant that you had to go to these different places or get a newspaper. Today, all you do is go to the person.
That's right.
You contact the person individually, just like that.
Right,
Well,
right.
They have the device on them.
The interesting thing, John, is that my staff prepares a regular newsletter, and we send out more than 13,000 directly to our constituents. And those of you who are not on my email list, send me an email, charles.yancey@cityofboston.gov. It's too expensive to print these.
So they can watch it, they can read it on the computer.
They can read it online.
So we send this, right now we're at monthly basis. We send it out electronically. We convert it to a PDF format so it doesn't consume a lot of space on your computer. And in the most recent issue, for example, we talked about the need to put AEDs on police vehicles the automatic electronic defibrillators to help save lives. And of course, we have them on
the person's having a heart attack
EMS, emergency medical service. Of course, we have the fire department, but we don't have on every police vehicle. I am proposing a law that will require all of our police vehicles to be equipped with these life-saving devices, because they're so our police officers are so pervasive, and they're all trained on using it anyhow, but they don't have the equipment. So we had a hearing in the city council. So I want everyone to call Councilor O'Malley. He's a good guy. He chairs the Government Operations Committee, and just tell him that we want some action on this particular ordinance, because even if it ends up saving just one life, it'll certainly be worth the investment. And guess what? We have a slight surplus in this year's budget no one's talking about. Well, you know, we didn't have much snow this past year.
That's right.
So there's at least a surplus.
No school days for the schools. No
right.
snow days for the schools.
That's right.
Too.
That's at least $7 million there. Our revenue is higher than what we projected in the budget. So there's actually money there. And I would like to invest, you know, whatever it takes to buy these defibrillators. It's between $1 and $2 million, depending upon the number of vehicles we put them on, so that if police officers happen upon a case where someone's having a cardiac arrest, that they will have the device readily available. Yes. Or if they're in the area and they hear that someone's having a medical problem and they're likely to get there before EMTs,
which is likely, which is very likely.
Yes. So
usually it's first on the scene.
That's right. So again, call your city councilors, tell them you want them to pass the ordinance that requiring all of our police vehicles to have AEDs. And I'd like to use the resources that Ted Lewis suggests and help get the word out about this and about the high school. Maybe we can generate some interest.
Yeah.
Give the home audience your email again.
Okay, Charles.Yancey, that's YANCEY at cityofboston.gov. City of Boston, one word. And if you forget that, call my office, we'll get it to you. But it's important. We have to increase the number of people we have on our database. Right now we have only 13,000.
How many people in your district? Of course, you're a city councilor for even though you're not at large.
Right. That's right.
Your vote counts as everybody else's. So
absolutely. So I represent roughly, after we complete the redistricting, 68,000 people will be the average size of each city council district. You can invite me on the show later to talk about redistricting. Yeah. That's a hot issue as well.
Oh, sure.
Because we have to reunite Mattapan. Mattapan was divided 10 years ago in a very hostile manner. But this year we're going to put it back together and maybe even create a city that reflects the demographic makeups. You know, Boston is majority people of color today. Not many people realize that.
It's just like that's been a couple of years now.
It's been 20 years, really.
Yeah, it's been a few years.
It was about 50.5% in 2000. Today, based on the 2010 census, 53% of the city of Boston is made up of people of color. But yet, only 4 of the 9 districts have predominantly people of color in those districts. So I'm proposing that we get up from 4 to 5 to reflect the fact that people of color are the majority in the city. If they're majority in the city, they should have a majority of the 9 seats. It's a tough sell. But
and that's where the electric comes.
Well, I think this
the voters come in.
An excellent area for social media to work in, because not only is it just getting the word out, but it's also embedding other information in it. Where you when I was in the Marine Corps, I used to read Navy Times, and at the end of it, it said, "Don't throw it away, but give it to a friend."
Right.
So it's
and they can forward to that.
They can forward to their friends. So it becomes an inverted pyramid. I mean, like the success story of Lady Gaga was all through social media.
That's right.
50 million fans that she's able to touch base with.
Literally in a moment's notice.
In a moment's notice. She could change an election.
Right. And we haven't talked about YouTube. Is it possible this program could be on YouTube?
Well, shows like this
are pick up on it everywhere around
That's why I'm
the
talking to John
about this show is actually worldwide right now.
Right. Excellent.
So we're not only, in fact, before we started, and I meant to mention a special hello to all of those who are watching us on Channel 23 right here in Boston on Comcast. channel 83, the RCN cable system, and a very special welcome to all of you who are watching us on the World Wide Web. That's right, Politics Today is now global.
Yes. Fantastic. And you know, you reminded me of something. There may be one person in the audience I haven't said hello to yet.
Please.
Mazetta, if you're watching, I love you dearly. My wife and I celebrated 42 years.
Congratulations.
Of
wedding. Congratulations.
This was back in January, but I want to thank my wife for all the support she's given me. You have to have a touch of insanity to be involved in politics.
Well, I don't know. We were talking about the grueling.
So she keeps me well-grounded.
Sure. I mean, sure.
We've been blessed with 4 beautiful children.
Yes.
Our youngest just graduated from Simmons a couple of years ago, and the other, my 3 sons are doing
I remember meeting
well.
one of your sons.
Yes, so we're blessed, and I have 5 grandchildren.
Oh, congratulations.
And I'm still a young man, I tell folks.
We're going to take one more. We have your question, please. Hello.
Hello, I'd like to ask Mr. Yancey, would he ever consider running for mayor or governor of Massachusetts?
Well, listen, I just enjoy serving the public, whatever capacity. If you want to elect me chief dog catcher, I'll do it. But whatever capacity you elect me to serve, I really do see it as an honor and a privilege to serve. And there's a joy. I tell young people all the time, you don't understand. I'm having fun serving the public. There's a certain joy in serving others. And when you get involved in community service, you understand that. That's why we have so much fun with our book fair every year.
Well, if you've been involved with community service, you get a special reward.
Absolutely.
You feel a special reward.
Listen, because the people elected me to the city council, whenever I see a Boston public school bus, I have a sense of pride. You know why? Because this is very low tech, Ted, I hope you don't mind. There's a little bar attached to the front bumper. It's called a crossing gate. Right. I'm the one who passed the law that requires that on every Boston public school bus.
Oh, really?
And what does it do? It allows the bus driver to know that there are no children in front of the bus because there's a wide swing, but very low tech.
And accidents do happen.
And around the country, children have been run over by their school buses.
Yes, sure.
So I see that. I have a sense of pride. When I go to the intersection of Blue Hill Avenue and Morton Street, and I remember the battle we had to build a police station in our district back in the early 80s. We got it done, even though the naysayers, even some members of the police department said, oh, Yancey would never build that police station. John Harden, Officer Harden, who just retired, remember sitting in the kitchen with Dorothy Selman. He said, no, Councilor Yancey, it's a good idea to build that police station, but it's never going to happen. Ray Flynn's not going to let it happen. But you know what? That building's been there for more than 20 years. Then I go up to Gallivan Community Development, and I see our community center there. And the residents said, well, we've been fighting. I can show you where we're demonstrating for a community center. We've had that community center there for over 20 years. And they said, okay. And then we have this community center on Mildred Avenue. Oh, it's never going to be built. I talked to the staff of the Mattapan Branch Library when they were located on Hazelton Street. And I told them that we're going to build a new library. They sort of smiled in a dismissive way and said, oh, there's Yancey going again. We'll never have a library.
It's there. It's a nice building.
Lewis videotaped the ceremony, dedication ceremony at the library. So when people look at me and say, well, Yancey, there you go again with this high school. It's never going to happen. It will happen because the city deserves it.
And you get everything, and you get all the factors in the right area. The people want it, the people support it.
And most of all, we need it.
Right.
And we have to invest in our children and their church.
No, another thing, I was in Washington, D.C. at the Children's Defense Conference.
Right.
And as I was meeting different people there, one was the mayor of Louisiana and things like that, they all said, how's Charles Yancey? And I was shocked. I said, you know Charles Yancey? Oh, yeah,
social media is very powerful.
It was before what we call social media. It's just the impact that Charles Yancey has had as the city councilor.
And you can imagine how much the word would get out there
with social media.
Right.
I have to confess, I've been very active with the National League of Cities. I've been on the board of directors. I was president of the National Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials, the largest organization of African American elected officials in the world. So there's a little bit of history there, and also members of Congress. So again, without the opportunity given me by the people of Boston, I never would have met the mayors from all around the country.
Well, they all asked for you.
Dignitaries all around the world as well.
That's why voting is so important.
It really is.
And we didn't even have a chance to talk about the upcoming election. Where did the time go, Ted? I mean, it's over. The show's over. All right, folks, Charles Yancey, District 4,
Good to see
Boston
you.
City Council. Charles,
Yes.
thank you so much for being on the program. Please come back
Well,
on again.
thank you so much, and you're so correct. Even though the people in District 4 can vote for me, I can vote for everybody in the city.
And Ted Lewis, we're going to be together on June 30th at 3 p.m. with Harvey Robbins, right?
That's going to be a
From
fantastic
Doo-Wop.
show.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Another
Politics
pitch,
Today.
I should do this. July 7th, come to our annual book fair.
That's
We're going
right.
to flood the community with new books. The Reggie Lewis Center. July 7th, Saturday, 12 to 3. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much.
Reading is important.
Yes, it is.
That was the